This is Stephen Cozy, and in the heart of a bustling Florida city, his sudden disappearance sent shock and confusion through the community. It was on an ordinary workday when Stephen stepped away from his desk for only a brief moment of time. However, strangely enough, he would never return. And when investigators started looking into this case, they quickly uncovered a mountain of chilling evidence, which all seemed to lead back to the dark underbelly within Stephen's professional circle, an underbelly that no one imagined could exist. But the problem is that with each and every clue that they found, it seemed to lead to more questions than answers. So who could hold such animosity towards Stephen, and why? Welcome back to Coffee House Crime. My name is Adrian, and we're looking at the peculiar case of Stephen Cozy and trying to find out what precisely happened to him. Before we begin, if you like true crime or chilling then please do consider subscribing. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee and let's caffeinate while we investigate. So imagine your typical workday morning routine. You'll drive to the office, put your bags down, make yourself a morning coffee, and then check those emails. Eventually, nature calls. You get up from your desk, walk towards the bathroom, and take a short comfort break. And here's the question: how many times have you made that short journey before? Well, if you were to work at the same for around 6 years and also follow a typical work schedule, then you're likely to use that bathroom around 7,000 times. So for a man like Stephen Cozy, who worked at Blanchard Law for several years, that 2-minute break was one that he literally had made thousands of times before. But here's the thing: on March the 21st, 2023, that rather mundane walk could be the last thing that Stephen would ever do. Because after stepping through that bathroom door, Stephen was never seen again. In fact, he had quite literally vanished. After making his way to the restroom, Stephen literally disappeared without a trace. Colleagues were stunned to find his wallet, keys and phone all neatly arranged beside his computer, suggesting that he had, in fact, planned to return at any moment afterwards. However, as the minutes turned into hours, confusion grew into concern, and soon bafflement spiraled into fear. As the mystery deepened, each revelation afterward leaving Stephen's peers, friends, and family more unsettled and desperate for answers. So what precisely happened beyond that door? Well, the truth they realized would be far darker and deeper than anyone could have imagined. But before we talk about what happened to him, we should probably get to know Stephen a little more intimately and also realize the situation that he had found himself in. Born and raised with a strong sense of empathy, Stephen pursued a career that came very naturally to him. Of course, that being one as a graduate of Stetson University College of Law, he was a chief ambassador and coach to many. Stephen specialized in employment and civil law and eventually found himself living in Florida, where up until the point of this story, he was an attorney at Blanchard Law for the next 6 years, spanning from the year 2018 to 2024. Colleagues described Stephen as thoughtful, approachable, and deeply committed to his clients, often going above and beyond to ensure that their voices were heard. Outside of work, Stephen was well known for his friendly demeanor and warm personality. He loved his dog, loved to hike, and really enjoyed being with friends and family. As described by his husband, he was brilliant, caring, and with his kindness earning him very strong friendships. So for Stephen to just suddenly up and disappear was extremely out of character, the total opposite, even, and none of his friends or family believed it. In fact, neither did his boss. Over the years, Jake Blanchard, who, of course, is the owner of Blanchard Law, had more come to see Steve as a good friend than a colleague. And so, considering this had happened on his premises and on his watch, he was extremely concerned about his safety. At the time of this happening, Blanchard Law was a company that operated out of a shared office space, which is located on Belcher Road in Largo, Florida. Taking a look at their website, Blanchard Law is a firm that specializes in bankruptcy, resolution, contracts. They are well respected in the community, and for a very good reason too. And you can see here on Google that there are lots of happy customers, all made through their ethical conduct. Looking at the building that they operated at the time, it was a shared office space with many points of entry. And although there are signs of 1 or 2 cameras, it is worth mentioning here that most of the perimeter is not monitored by CCTV. So, with all of this in mind, what precisely happened to Stephen? The date was March the 21st, 2023, and what was considered to be a very typical Tuesday for Stephen would go on to take a very dark turn. It was around 8 o'clock a.m. that he checked into his role at Blanchard Law, and from here, he settled into his rather familiar role. Stephen was always punctual, organized, and reliable as a colleague. His calendar was packed. Emails awaited his response. Documents needed reviewing. And to top it all off, he had a very significant conference call, timed for 10 o'clock a.m., you see. There was a lot of contention around this phone call, most notably because it was related to a lawsuit with the next colleague of the client that he was representing. And so it makes sense that Stephen was likely well prepared, but also quite nervous. It is worth saying here that nothing seemed unusual about Stephen's demeanor, and colleagues noticed that he appeared calm, focused, and also completely unaware of the events that were soon to unfold as the morning progressed. The office buzzed with activity. However, at around 10 o'clock a.m., Stephen briefly excused himself to head to the bathroom. He stepped away from his desk, leaving behind his personal items, including his phone, keys, wallet, and laptop, signaling that he intended to return rather quickly afterwards. But as the minutes ticked by, Stephen's noticed that his absence was unusually long, and then, when he failed to dial in that conference call at 10 o'clock a.m., well, his colleagues knew that something was up. It is at that moment in time that colleagues searched for Stephen, but there was no trace of him. And to make matters even stranger, his car remained in the car park completely untouched. And when they checked the bathroom, those concerns would grow even stronger. Because not only was Stephen not there, but there were two ominous clues left behind. After walking into the bathroom, they noticed a very strong smell of coming from the air. Not only that, but it appeared that the room had been thoroughly cleaned, or at least mostly thoroughly cleaned. Because whoever had done that job seemed to miss a small spot, and in that spot was several droplets of blood. Ominously, all of this was now beginning to feel like a potential crime scene, and so the authorities were called immediately, with officers arriving only a few minutes later. It was at this stage that the Largo Police Department would launch its own investigation, with their initial focus being on the law office and that potential bathroom. Forensic teams combed through the area, searching for any clues that could explain Stephen's sudden disappearance. They would also search for any possible surveillance footage, and they were surprised by what they would find. Investigators, checking the surveillance cameras from the building, would find footage that revealed a man entering the building around 8:30, who at the time was wearing all black, a backpack and gloves. And only 2 hours later, that same individual was seen exiting the building, while also pulling a large cart, or which bin, appeared to be very heavy. The man's face was obscured. However, his movements and his attire did raise suspicions. Forensic analysis would also confirm that the strange droplets found in the bathroom were, in fact, traces of blood. Further examination would also uncover more blood outside of the bathroom, where DNA testing would also confirm that it did belong to Stephen Cozy. This, suggesting that a violent incident had occurred while inside the bathroom. So at this stage, investigators now had a missing person, an active crime scene, and also footage of a man who could potentially be responsible. But who would want Stephen gone, and why? Well, to answer that question, we must first look at the meeting that he was supposed to attend later that morning, and also the defendant behind that case. And so, on that note, allow me to introduce you to Dr. Tampa Bay. Dr. Tampa Bay, who is also known as Tom Kasalski, was a 44-year-old man who was living in the same area. Initially from Tarpon Springs, he received a master's degree from the University of New Mexico. Before then, attending the Tuck School of Business in Dartmouth, he graduated in the year 2007, where he then became a plastic surgeon. At the time, the Laufer Institute described him as a pioneer in using native fat for breast and buttock enhancement. Not only that, but he was also optimally positioned to become a national leader in the industry, following the modern trend of social media. It was at that point in time that Dr. Kasalski turned to YouTube and Instagram to share his many surgeries online, where he posted many videos of himself, his life, and his achievements. Hi everybody. This is Dr. Tampa Bay. I wanted to talk about tear-trough deformities. Now, tear-trough deformities, you can see them very prominently on me here on this side. These are one of the very first signs of aging in late 20s. early 30-year-olds. And a very common way that plastic surgeons deal with this problem is by injecting filler. My social media army is Dr. Tampa Bay. We've had some awesome cases this week. If they're still up, check them out on Snapchat. As you can tell, the latest trend in these ultra-high-profile implants and you saw was put in the Mentor device, as well as the Aladdin device into patients this week. You can tell from his videos that Tom was very proud of his work. It was in the year 2018 that he founded his own business practice, where he would then go on receive national recognition and be featured in multiple books and even a packet of chips. Through the following years, Tom was very active on social media and would often celebrate his achievements along the way, as you can see here. Hi Instagrammers, I just wanted to let you all know we hit 4,000 followers last night, which is awesome. Thank you so much for all your love and support. You guys mean the world to us. Please encourage tag. Let your friends know about us, cause once we hit 5,000, we're gonna have a huge party and a big giveaway here. But here is the problem. You see, Tom was so proud of his work that he would never let anyone say anything negative about it, and this is where his issues began to spiral. Initially working for the Laufer Institute in 2016, he ran into trouble when the woman assigned to complete his insurance billing would then fail to file claims and even lie to his patients. As a result, this not only cost him thousands of dollars, but it would also result in several extremely negative reviews of him being posted online. Tom believed that the woman's actions had essentially obliterated his promising young career, and so it was for that reason that he decided to leave the company and then sue them for damaging his reputation. As a result, he filed a lawsuit against all people associated with the law firm Institute of Plastic Surgery for negligence, breach of contract, and fraudulent misrepresentation. And this would be where Stephen Coetzee eventually came into the picture. Stephen, who worked at Blanchard Law, was on the other side of the legal fence, representing and defending all of those from the Laufer Institute. And of course, this would place him directly in conflict with Tom Kozlowski. The legal dispute between Tom, Stephen, and the Laufer Institute was marked by escalating tensions, which, of course, only got worse over time. Reports indicate that in January of 2023, an argument between Tom and Stephen would erupt in Blanchard Law's common area, and so many people saw that the two quite clearly had beef between each other. And you see, not only did this highlight Tom's frustration with Stephen, but it would also prove that he had been to Blanchard Law before, and therefore likely knew the office's layout. And to make matters even worse, an employee from a neighboring company who was situated in the same building reported seeing Tom hiding in the closet next to that bathroom only 1 week before Stephen's disappearance. This suggesting that Tom was scoping out the area in advance so he could then plan to attack Stephen. In addition to this, forensic analysis would also reveal that Tom's fingerprints were found inside of the utility closet, therefore adding weight to that he had been hiding in the building and then possibly waiting for an opportunity to confront Stephen. With mounting suspicions, the authorities decided to obtain a search warrant for Tom's house and his vehicle, and moving forward, what they found was not good news for him. For one, detectives would discover traces of Stephen's blood inside Tom's garage and also in the bed of his pickup truck, both of which seemed to be mixed with Tom's DNA. Of course, suggesting a potential attempt to clean up or dispose of the evidence. And speaking of garage, it seems that Tom had purchased a red Toyota Corolla in cash only weeks before Stephen's disappearance. Not only that, but he would never register the vehicle, instead equipping it with a license plate flipping device and even using an old license plate that was registered to a dead person. Even worse, when they found him in another vehicle, he was found to be in possession of $280,000 in cash, multiple face masks, duct tape, firearms, a ballistic vest with a substantial amount of blood on it, and a vial and loaded syringe full of succinylcholine, a powerful paralytic agent. A search of his home would also uncover approximately 200 firearms, which is a little obsessive if you ask me. But of course, he could simply have been a collector. So, although the direct evidence was quite limited, the circumstantial evidence available was rather compelling. And when detectives attached to all of the items they had not only in the car, but also the garage, they would come up with their own plausible theory. Now, I do have to point out all of this is merely alleged and seen through the prosecution's eyes. As Tom is yet to stand trial, the prosecution believes that due to his ever-growing resentment towards Stephen and also the legal disputes, Tom decided to murder him in cold blood. They assume that Tom entered Blanchard early in the morning and then decided to hide in the utility closet next to the bathroom in anticipation of Stephen. Of course, this explaining his thumbprint. When Stephen entered the bathroom, Tom then followed shortly after before violently attacking him, and this explains the blood splatter found inside. After paralyzing Stephen, he then transported his body to his truck using a wheelie bin, this explaining the surveillance footage. After that, Tom would clean the bathroom, which explained the smell of bleach. It is only around half an hour later that a random license plate reader would capture Tom's truck near his own home. And ominously, it appeared that license plate reader captured an image what appeared to be a body in the bed of that truck. The same license plate reader then detected the truck leaving the neighborhood around 5 hours later. Another license reader would then capture the truck in Miami, which is located around 300 miles away. On March the 25th, 2024, and only 4 days after the attack, Tom was officially charged with first-degree murder. And despite all of the evidence available, albeit circumstantial, he pleaded not guilty. As a result, Tom will have to go to trial. The prosecution has since indicated their intention to seek the death penalty, citing their confidence that this was premeditated murder. To this day, Stephen's body has never been found. Nobody knows where he could be, or how precisely he died. Interestingly, court documents have revealed that Thomas's phone records LED police with cadaver dogs to a dumpster, which was then emptied into the Collier County landfill. Another document states that footage taken from a garbage truck shows a large garbage bag falling in a manner consistent with a human body, so it appears that officers may go down the route assuming that Thomas murdered Stephen and then disposed of his body all the way down in Collier County. This would make a lot of sense too, as we know that his vehicle was then spotted in Miami the following day, with Collier County being on the way. Another theory is Stephen's body may have been dumped in the Everglades National Park. And let's be honest, this is a very tough part of America when looking for a corpse. There is also another big problem with this case. Not only was Stephen's body never found, but he was never seen leaving the building either. And so, it makes sense to assume that Thomas may have taken him out. The last actual sighting of Stephen or his body was when he was alive, entering the bathroom. In addition to this, there are so many other questions remaining. For example, why on earth would Thomas murder an attorney over a mere $15,000 civil case? Quite honestly, it makes no sense to a logical and rational person. On March the 29th, 2023, a quiet yet powerful gathering formed to honor Stephen, where friends, family and colleagues all stood filled together with sorrow and love. Organized by the St. Petersburg Bar Association, the vigil celebrated Stephen's kindness, compassion, and dedication to justice. Michael Montgomery, who is Stephen's husband, warmly shared many personal memories, highlighting Stephen's humor, humanity and passion for supporting the underdog. One by one, friends and colleagues shared their heartfelt reflections and emphasized his profound impact on their lives. And one of the coolest things about this whole track, or that's come out of this tragedy, is that I've gotten to basically meet my husband again. By seeing pictures that I didn't know existed and learning about things that I didn't know he did. You know. And I'm incredibly grateful. And so, with all said and done, we will just have to wait and see how Tom's trial goes. Now, personally, given all of the circumstantial evidence available, I do think that there is a possibility that Tom will be found guilty. But maybe his defense has a few tricks up their sleeve. Like I said, although we technically have a motive, we don't actually have a body. Now, is it just me? Or do you think there is more to the story that we don't quite know yet? Because honestly, this is just one of the wildest reasons ever. Stephen was merely doing his job. And it's not like Blanchard Law was the offending party. Either they were the ones defending their clients. So, perhaps Stephen actually knew more than we currently do. As always, this will eventually iron out. To make this case a little more complicated, all of Tom's friends have described him as gentle and not impulsive. All of his alleged behavior is way out of character, and nobody had a single bad thing to say about him. So did Tom snap? Or do they have the wrong person? In the last few days, recently released documents have also highlighted several interesting facts, which will likely be brought to trial. Although we can't tell what was found in these documents. To me, This sounds like a kill kit in the making, but I could be very wrong here. Camarena said a good strategy for the defense, maybe to plead guilty, to get the death penalty off the table. Kozovsky's attorney spoke after his client first appeared in court in March. Keep an open mind. These are serious charges. He is presumed innocent, as he's currently sitting in jail. We're conducting our own investigation, and, as it develops, we'll try to keep you updated. In a motion to dismiss the case, Kozovsky's attorney suggested Kotze's disappearance may have been his own doing. The defense is stressing that has not been convicted, and he's presumed innocent. Despite the nature of the charges, I was floored. I know, Dr. Tom, on a casual basis have, met him a couple times, chatted with him, socialized with him, and I'm just floored. I used to be a homicide investigator. I can't imagine what motive he would have to hurt anyone. It is now reported that Tom's trial will begin in merely a week's time, on April the 17th. And of course, if there are any updates to this case, I will let you know in a future video. But for now, I think I'll wrap this video up here. And so with that said, thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. By the way, if you want to get future updates or maybe find out more about coffeehouse crime myself, then please consider following me on Instagram. What you'll find over there is plenty of true crime related content, and also updates on me, Nero, and my endeavors too. And trust me, there's plenty of stuff coming your way. Just search Coffeehouse Crime on Instagram, and I'm sure I'll come up. And I look forward to seeing you there. Before I go, I would love to know what you think about this story. Do you think that Stephen was murdered by Tom? And if yes, how? As always, share your thoughts down below. And apologies for this video being quite short. But I've got a few things going on in the background, which I'm sure you'll find out soon. And on that note, I'll catch you again very shortly. Likely once or twice next week, depending. Until then, remember to look after yourselves and each other. And beyond all, stay safe. Thank you, folks. Goodbye.